And girls, it's the weather report for Friday, June 17th, 2022. And I'm surprised that Midnight didn't interrupt me during that.
That's amazing. Great self-discipline there, Midnight.
Anyway, so how are y'all? So, can you tell us a little bit about the Brittle Life thing that happened? I put that in the description.
It was kind of just the ERV one. Yeah, it was kind of just he was kind of rehashing the same talking points, obviously. But yeah, me and Dr. Dan and a few others were in the side chat, kind of throwing some punches at him. I'm saying, oh nope, this doesn't work. Oh, you're gonna say this? Nope, that doesn't work. Nope, that doesn't work. and you could kind of tell towards the end he was getting a wee bit frustrated, because he was kind of throwing some indirect insults at Dr. Dan and just like I said, he was kind of unraveling his inner Kent Hovind, as I said earlier.
Well,
because you could almost tell he was going semi-verbatim there.
Well, you know, he could also like invoke his inner Darth Dawkins and just start talking about how the people in the side chat are just being pseudo-intellectuals.
Yep.
That's the way they're just pseudo-intellectuals who don't know real science.
Yeah. Oh, and he called geneticists, or compared them to children, by the way.
Geneticists compared to children.
Yeah. In relation to like the whole junk DNA thing, obviously, but I just found that very amusing.
So all those papers that he flashes are from children? Because
apparently so.
Most of them are the geneticists. So. Well, he's got a few. I noticed he's got a lot from reasons.org and from Creation.
And Evolution News. And,
Evolution News. ERVs, what are they? Yeah. Anyway, okay, in the description, I have the SFT conversation with you. Conversation 2? When was Conversation 1? Why did he name it Conversation 2?
Oh, because I think he did this. He's kind of calling it like a podcast, and he did an earlier one with I think Ken Rock is his name.
Oh, okay.
So I guess this is the second conversation in the series.
Right, and then the other thing I have is our Endogenous Retroviruses Evidence for Evolution on Brittle Life's Evolution channel, which is the first thing you were talking about.
Yep.
And then also Grr Mania, Hollaback Grr, I call him now, Hollaback Grr. He did a stream with Kenny last night.
Oh.
Which had all
that's right.
Interesting stuff in there.
That's why Grr has to go out of town later, is to seek treatment for enduring that. The inanity of it all.
Yep. Hollaback Grr. I like that. From the holler. He's from the holler.
He's from the holler down yonder.
He's actually a 76-year-old man from the holler, and that's why he won't show his face. So
must mean he has a voice change of some kind. Then.
Well, I don't know. Pine Creek said I didn't sound like I was 71, so I'm not sure.
There you go. Yeah.
What does that mean? You're supposed to sound a certain way when you get older. What happens?
Yeah, see, I think people's, at least mine and Doug's ages, our recollection of what the typical old person sounds like is of an age of people that smoked from the time they were like 12 and upward. And so an old voice is a lot rougher and gruffer than maybe an older voice of the next generation or so.
So
That's just a theory. It's not even a hypothesis. It's just an opinion that I just yanked out of my
You
other
can
regions.
maybe call it a historical hypothesis. You could
Could be
probably test it
historical
somewhere.
speculation.
Yeah,
the thing is that people have a lot of stereotypes about certain age groups and certain races. And what do we call that when people have stereotypes that they just can't seem to get over and they apply to everybody that, what do we
that
call
is
that?
true.
Biases,
Prejudice,
Racism?
some sort of ism. Yeah,
ageism.
Ageism?
Yeah.
I mean, ageism is considered okay for some fucking reason, even though all of you guys are marching that road and you're going to be there in a blink of an eye. Just bang, you're going to be there. And you're going to be
some
like,
more than
what
others.
the fuck?
Does that mean when I've been called like a high school dropout or whatever by creationists, they're showing ageism, or is that kind of different?
If you're called like a high school student, yeah, if they're basically using your youth against you, yes, then that's
Okay,
ageism.
that's good to know.
Yeah. It's like apparently there's a sweet spot, like 38 or something like that you have to be in order to know anything. And then after that, you can get stuff. Bye, Thor.
Yeah.
Sorry to see you go, Thor.
By Thor's beard.
Yep. Anyway, so SFT was showing this little blurb. No, that was, where is it? Should be YouTube, right? No. Okay. He was showing this thing. Oh, no, not that one. Okay, that creation model. And he shows this little snippet here. And that actually came from this paper, or not paper, but I don't know what that
fair.
Matthew Serhati. Holy shit. Happened.
Somebody looking at Marvel trailers or something.
SFT. SFT.
Stop it, YouTube.
Oh, no. Anyway, so this guy, this Serhati, supposedly has a PhD in biology. And he gets so many things wrong here about evolution that it's just incredible.
One can narrow it down. What's his PhD specifically in?
He says biology from a real university.
Hmm.
I don't know. But his bio says that Dr. Serhati, pronounced Cherhati, came to Christ after high school in Hungary. But after studying biology at the university, he struggled with harmonizing the book of Genesis with evolutionary theory he was being taught. After a few years of his struggle at being exposed to information on creation, he came to understand that the evolutionary worldview and the gospel are in opposition to one another. And that evolution uses death as a natural process. But according to the Bible, death is the last enemy and a consequence of man's sin. So this PhD in biology
doesn't sound biased at all.
Yeah, he came up with that all on his own. This hypothesis in biology, right? And he looks kind of like a I don't know, one of those guys. I can't judge people by the way.
Just another creationist.
Yeah, let's not judge him on his looks.
Let's not judge him on his looks, but it's just like, God, can I help judging him on his looks? I don't know. Okay, so then he wrote this paper or article for creation.com.
Did DNA come from? Wait, what's the title?
Okay, so here's what's going on. So they discovered an ERV in koalas that is only in part of the one population. I think it's in the south, and it's not in the north, or vice versa. So they discovered a recent introduction of a retrovirus that has become an endogenous retrovirus in koalas.
Right.
And for the creationists, this is a bit of a problem because this is evidence that this happens, right?
Right.
So this being used is pretty strong evidence that this happens because this happened within the last, they figured, 200 years, something like that. So it happened very recently.
Very recently. 200 years.
And he goes, some evolutionists allege that 8% of the human genome originated from viruses. The number is ambiguous. You see, right there, he's wrong. Okay, it's like 48%, my friend. I don't, he's confusing endogenous retroviruses or LTR retroviruses with all, transposons, basically. Because they think lines originated from viruses too. So there you go. Okay, authors, let's see. Since different authors include different genetic elements as viruses, signs, and lines, ALUs make up, you got that right, 11%. According to another study, 22.4% of the genome is covered by ERVs. I've never heard of that one. I think it's 8%. I don't know. They claim maybe, when did he write this? Okay, this is 2020.
Oh.
Okay. They claim that this came about when viruses infected humans and inserted their DNA into the human genome. Researchers from the University of Massachusetts studied the spread of koala virus, KORV, as it infects the genomes of koalas from northern to southern Australia. Based on that, these researchers claim that a similar process could also have happened with other viruses. I don't know. Okay, they're talking about this recent introduction of a virus into the genome. So it ended up in the germline of the genome. And they don't like that because they've been going on about koalas ever since. So.
Okay.
Yep. But how do retroviruses?
Kind of notice that the language he's using there, they claim and supposedly and
yeah.
They're assuming and all the kind of the buzzwords used now and again.
So who are we listening to in this article or whatever?
Matthew Cerati.
Cerati. No, okay. For a minute there, I thought it was SFT. Cerati.
The reason I'm showing it is because SFT. This is one of the slides that he flashed. The conclusion is down below. And then let's see, hence retro and virus. Well, okay, then he goes on about kind of a confusing a little bit about vertically and horizontally. It wasn't very good. Let's see. Horizontal transfer germline is made up of reproductive cells, sperm, and eggs. If viral DNA is incorporated in the genome of the cells that give rise to the sperm or egg, then the virus will survive. Anyway, well, if it infects the germline, basically. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Adapted from Tarlington, 2006. Okay, wait a minute. That isn't recent. That's a while ago. So they're just now going on about this. So let's see. Gradient showing ratios of koalas with a certain population with copies of KORV in their genome. Populations in the north have a higher number of koalas with KORV in their, let's see. Oh, okay. So this is the gradient, basically. So they're showing the spread of this thing throughout the genome.
Right.
Yep. Oh, let's see. Those that have become totally fixed with the genome are called ERVs. According to evolutionary theory, in this manner, the genome would be much like a molecular fossil graveyard, which is kind of what it looks like to me. And what else? Let's see. This is how evolutionists try to explain the presence of 30 to 40 different families of viruses. And its numbers are all over the place, so I'm not going to repeat them. Over the past 30 million years, I think it goes a lot longer than that.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, I think
there's some that are a lot older than that.
Yeah. Once inside the human genome, several things can happen. Usually they can lose their function and degenerate into functionless DNA. Okay. They can also cause illnesses such as cancer. We know that.
Yeah.
This happens. Well, they cause illnesses. Basically, no. The ones that are fixed in the population there may be one that gives you a tendency to cancer, but no, they don't cause cancer. The ones that cause cancer are the ones that can still jump, the ones that are still active, and they can cause a mutation that ends up being cancer. So he got that wrong, PhD biologist. This would be like, okay, and then he goes on with an analogy. And then one
Oh,
frequently
that's
cited
interesting. SFT kind of used the exact same analogy
did he with he did.
with the Russian language and all that. That's pretty intriguing.
Now here, one frequently cited example is the syncytin gene, right? And they act like, okay, we just now discovered this syncytin gene, right? And I have papers over here from 2000 that basically talk about the original hypothesis for syncytin.
2017, you said?
2000, 22 years ago.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I heard 2017.
By Chao Mai, right? And he shows
2000.
his basically, he shows a graph which has been reprinted a ton of times on this syncytin thing. And he shows a bunch of other evidence. And there's another in the same journal, Stoy talks about the provirus put to work, basically. So this is 22 years ago. One of these articles says that basically they've been looking for a long time for function for ERVs and transposons in general. And the article was from like 1999 or 2000, something like that. So I mean, their rhetoric that we're so surprised that these things have function and we're just finding out. No, it's been going on for 25 years or longer. So, and that's
even since they started discovering these different genetic elements, are like, okay, what does this do? It has to be here for, or some of them have to be here for something at least, which is true.
Well, he says a bunch of really dumb shit here. How does the koala retrovirus spread? Okay, according to evolutionists in the north, all have copies, whereas the number of cells do not. Interesting to note that KORV causes lymphomas in infected koalas. Besides this, KORV suppresses the koala's immune system. How the hell does that work? I thought SFT said that it strengthened the immune system because it was exactly like the virus, right? Why is it suppressing it? Contrary to evolutionary theory, the previously described process is one major roadblock for viruses to integrate into the host genome. And here's what he says. Oh my goodness, my crew. If the presence of KORV in a koala genome is so advantageous to koalas, who the hell said it was? Then they shouldn't be falling victim to natural selection by such debilitating illnesses as cancer.
Just read the footnote that he cites, and I'm sure he'll tell you who says.
Is there a footnote?
I don't know. Is there?
No.
I just assumed there would be because he says something about something that he doesn't have an expertise in. So I would think that he would have a footnote or whatever. Or he would have to cite somebody else's work if he has not done the work himself.
No, he came up with this all on his own.
Oh, okay. That's strange.
Right. So if there's an ER,
doesn't strike me as scholarly.
And it is so advantageous. I don't understand where you got that from. Why would it be advantageous? Right.
Citation needed. We need a meme.
But yet there's a second major obstacle for the virus to fully integrate into the host genome. Like the cellular immune system, the genome has a way of dealing with these disruptive retroviral invaders. The immune system can distinguish its own cells from that of viruses, bacteria, or other invaders. This kind of immune response is also present in the genome at a molecular level. On a genetic level, the genome is capable of distinguishing between its own genes and genes of the viruses and bacteria. This is possible since the structure of virus genes is different from those of the koala. Did you follow that? So that's a problem, right? So he's saying that, what is he saying? He's saying that the virus couldn't possibly get in there because the immune system would have found it and stomped it out. And that's why I get the flu every now and then.
Well, his argument here seems to be kind of irrelevant, though, because obviously these systems aren't going to be 100% perfect.
Right.
Some of them are going to slip through. And since we've shown that, yeah, they can integrate themselves into the host genome.
Yeah,
Once-
there's a time
no one's saying,
differential.
yeah,
Oh, sorry. There's a time differential between getting infected and your body mounting a defense to it, right?
Well,
So-
Yeah,
in order for this paragraph to float as a problem, basically that would mean koalas could never get this virus, as an exogenous retrovirus, right? That
Right.
they could never actually get this disease, but they do. We know they do. So what is he blathering about?
I think
And then he
it's
has
almost like he's saying or suggesting that we think that they all must that all integrations must eventually become fixed in the population, which again isn't the case. No one said that all
And that they-
ERVs get fixed.
well, and he's also confused about, okay, they can fix whether they have a benefit or not,
Right.
but they won't fix if they kill enough. If they kill too many koalas, then it won't
Right.
fix by drift. But it could fix by drift alone,
Right.
which is kind of what's happening. That's why they're seeing that gradient, right? So it's fixing by drift because it's not killing all of them. But he's very confused about evolution. That's why I really question his PhD.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Can
then
you
he
have
has
a PhD in biology and not be
yeah.
well versed in genetics? And
Yes. Yeah.
maybe
you
he's that
could-
kind of biology
it could
PhD.
be. Yeah. Okay. Genes of eukaryotes such as human or koala are more complex than those of bacteria or viruses. Yeah. So,
Yeah. What's your point there?
eukaryotic genes are made up of several units called exons. Okay. Then he goes on about exons, which can be cut and pasted. On the other hand, the genes of bacteria are made up of a single unit. Okay. And viruses. KORV gene is made up of 3 genes, the last of which codes for a protein envelope of the virus. Of these, GAG and PAL genes are prokaryotic and are not spliced.
Wait, what?
What? Okay,
What
they're
is he
not.
talking about here?
I don't know. Whereas the ENV gene is. Okay.
What?
To deactivate.
That's false. They're all retroviral genes.
Yeah, to deactivate the GAG and PAL genes of KORV, the koala cell produces so-called piRNA molecules. Then he goes off on this piRNA tangent, which
I also want to note that he doesn't have a footnote next to that. These genes are prokaryotic. This gene is eukaryotic. Sentence that should raise some eyebrows.
So in Hungary, does having a PhD mean that you don't have to footnote anything?
I guess
he's
not.
got a footnote here. He's got 10.
Right, but he doesn't have it next to the above sentence.
Okay, 10 goes to the Pee-wee RNAs, the short RNA. Yeah, he just okay. So that's not a nothing.
Seems like he's just making stuff up.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Too bad we can't get Dr. Dan to review this paper.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be fun.
And then he says, interesting. Okay, that the piRNA is enriched in host tissue such as the testes, right? Well, the testes basically they're like the I don't want to say sluts of the tissue types. They basically promote almost tons of genes. I mean, you'll find high promotion profiles in the testes all the time, but I don't think that those get into the germline. There's a lot of protection in the male germline. It's not as good as the females, but there is protection. So just because it's promoted in the testes does not mean that it's going to affect every sperm. If it did, then any baby born to a father older than 18 years old would be dead out of the box. So he's wrong about that. So anyway. Okay, does viral invasion of host genomes make sense? What do you think? Does it? Okay, evolutionary. Okay, this is beautiful. The evolutionary picture of viruses invading the genome of animal species is slowly integrating over millions of years runs into numerous problems. First,
This next sentence is rich.
the spread of KLRV within koalas has been happening for only 100 years, not millions.
Yes.
What the? That's the point of the
That's
papers.
the point.
Not all of them had to have happened at the same time as this one happened, right?
Right. Not all of them survived for millions.
And you see what a bonehead this guy is? I mean, what the hell? Okay, second, if KLRV is...
He's kind of just grasping straws here, to be honest.
And then he says, again, useful in the long run. Who the hell said it was useful? There's nothing...
Yeah.
And why does it cause such debilitating
Seems
diseases?
like he's creating a man of straw here.
That's something.
Ooh, a man of straw, and he's going to like try to tear it down.
Well, I don't
Hey,
think...
real quick question. Are you guys going to cover that Rebecca SFT thing?
Well, I was hoping that Speed
never
could
heard
probably
it.
take a look at it first, though.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it, but since he hasn't, we should probably do
So
some.
you're thinking like a future?
Yeah, probably a future
Okay.
would be my guess.
Ian wanted to know, and he's got to head to the gym here in a little
Yeah.
bit.
We are going to review the other discussion I had with SFT, though, right, Speed?
Yeah, we're going to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
So
then,
hope that suffices for today, Ian.
and then he adds, the researchers are even suggesting a vaccine to save the koalas from extinction. Okay. Whatever. What is going on here? Okay. How is it that so many... oh, got it. My screen is not refreshing. How is it that so many inactive copies of KLRV survive in the koala genome? About
Oh,
8
here we go with the claim again that it would cost too much energy to replicate over and over again. No.
But no, he didn't even talk about about transcription or anything. He talks about it would cost a cell much too much energy and material to keep the junk DNA intact for an indefinite length of time.
Excuse me, sir. You might want to have a little chat with some certain species of plants. They seem to not care about what you're saying there, what with their whole genome duplications a lot.
Like onions.
Yep, like onions.
Yeah. Okay.
Those darn onions.
Already had some function. Okay, what does he say? It is much more likely that the ERVs, such as KORV, already had some function in the genome.
So does he point to any kind of studies that show that it's too costly for cells to maintain those ERVs altogether?
No citation there either. So
golly, that would be so helpful, wouldn't it?
Okay,
so
what's the link he has there? It would be superfluous to keep junk DNA in the genome. What? Highlight over that? Where does that go to? I'm guessing that just goes to another creation article.
No, that's just highlighted text.
It's
just highlighted text. Yeah.
Never mind. He doesn't cite anything.
Yeah. So, okay, then he says that it already had some function in the genome. Well, why don't all the koalas have it?
Right.
So,
and if it did have a function originally, then why did some of them lose them then? If they originally all had them, but now some of them don't have them.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And why creation is a better explanation. I'm not taking your word for that at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lastly, why is it that host pRNA already exists in the genome with a sequence which is complementary to that of the GAG and PAL genes? That I don't know enough about, so I'll have to research that.
Just want to point out that Ian Chin Official, the man from the future, he says a review of such material as we discussed would also be good. He thanks us. So,
yes.
Yep.
So maybe we've already done it since he's in the future.
Maybe he's already. Oh God, he already knows what we're going to say.
I know. Yeah, maybe he needs to email us what we're going to say so that we can make sure and say it.
Yep. So the Peewee RNA, if I'm not mistaken, is about 20 nucleotides long or something like that. I don't know if we have a picture of that here. And it's not that surprising that there's a match, but I'll have to look into that. And
Here he's bringing up the Viage hypothesis again.
Okay, here's the part where SFT clipped. Okay. Is it possible to reinterpret retroviruses according to the creation theory? Accordingly, retroviruses could have originated from within the host genome instead of invading it. And let's see, viruses are incapable of surviving without the host cell. Well, okay. So when and you touched on that at the end of your SFT thing,
Right.
where it's like,
Well,
we don't
the
know.
big problem with this Vige variation inducing genetic element hypothesis is that it kind of sidesteps the issue and then inadvertently destroys itself in the process. Because for one thing, how do you distinguish these originally created Viges from the ones that kind of copy and paste themselves elsewhere in the genome, or that create these endogenous retroviruses that then copy themselves into the genome? And secondly, once you have these copy and paste mechanisms going on, then you're naturally dealing with the integrase involved needed to insert their DNA into the host genome. And that gets into the whole, okay, then again, why are they in the same locations? Because as we've explained a million times already, integrase doesn't have that very specific target site preference. So if these are from already existing transposons that kind of reproduce themselves and then reinsert themselves, and that explains these ERVs, then they shouldn't be in the same locations anyway. So it doesn't really explain the point to begin with.
But here's the kicker now. Suppose God did put them in the genome in the beginning, okay? And they escaped, and they did what? They evolved into a different kind viruses? Is that what they're saying?
Maybe.
Did they evolve into viruses?
I guess so.
But that's a different kind. I thought there was no evidence of evolving into a different kind.
Isn't that kind of equivalent to genetic material becoming alive, abiogenetic?
Yeah.
Kind of some similar aspects there.
Yeah, I'm thinking that people don't look at these articles critically before they get published.
That was why I named this "Do Creationists Listen to Themselves?" It was that line right there, that sentence, right?
Perfect title.
Yeah.
Since viruses take up such a large portion of the genome, they must have said, nope, that's a false assumption.
Nope. Onions.
And we know reasons why that's not the case.
And then he says, for some reason, viruses are capable of transporting genes besides their own.
Oh, yeah, well, that's just horizontal gene transfer.
Yep. It almost sounds to me like this guy doesn't have a grasp of all the background information about genetics and about biology in general, even though he's got a PhD in that field.
Right. So this is the part that SFT had clipped for his little slideshow right here. That's it. According to variation-inducing genetic element or Vige hypothesis, certain genes in host genomes do not originate from retroviruses. Rather, these genes are influenced by transposable genetic elements, which can alter the regulation of genes.
Some things can.
Okay, but if that happened, suppose a gene jumped and influenced the regulation of a gene, and it varied the species, we call that evolution.
Right.
So there again, they're talking about evolution and claiming that it's a creationist hypothesis. What the fuck are they saying? I mean, it's like, that's what I mean. Do they ever listen to themselves? Because, if these things can jump around, to relatively stochastic or random locations, and they can influence a gene, and they can change the organism and turn a kitty into a tiger or something like that. Well, what they're talking about is de novo function for a gene, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, they're talking about evolution, and they're claiming it is creation. You see how they go around in circles?
Yeah, pretty
It's just
much.
amazing. They leave copies of themselves behind. They ensure that the new variation that they brought about can be inherited. That sounds like evolution. I don't know. Anyway, so when SFT says, do you have an example of an ERV jumping and becoming functional, point to this paper by one of his creationist friends, which he has on his own goddamn slides, which is claiming that exact thing. They're claiming
That's a
that
good
it will
point.
jump in front of a gene and that it will upregulate or downregulate that gene, turn it on or off, and have a new function.
That is a very good point.
Interesting, right?
I will have to try that next time, if there is a next time.
If there is a next time, we'll see.
He's probably gonna block me from his channel anytime.
Yeah, sooner or later you'll get
Sooner or
blocked.
later.
Okay, so I gotta.
Now to the video.
Well, I have a few highlights. I started at 103 with putting in timestamps. I guess I don't have any before that.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of them I'm just highlighting which slide he's showing or whatever. So I don't know how much we can. But let's go ahead and see what he's saying here.
And I can admit to that. So that's why I typically ask the question that is no stranger to Andrew. Are these really the ancient remnants of past viral infections, or are they created units of DNA function? At least the fixed ones. The ones that are stuck in place, I can confidently predict these are created units of DNA function, therefore.
Okay. The ones that are stuck in place, all of the ERVs are stuck in place because I think there have been a few instances of an active ERV being found in some somatic line somewhere or in cancers or whatever, but they're few and far between. For the most part, there are no ERVs that are still jumping around.
Right.
And he's making a contrast, and I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
I think he's confusing endogenization with fixation here a little bit.
Yeah, he does that a lot. So.
Yeah.
I would predict function. And this also applies to the shared mutational discrepancies. Okay, if they are fixed, if they are stuck in place, then this may actually be reflective of the functional requirements of the respective organism.
Except when we look across species, okay, we find a unbelievable amount of mutation. And when we look even within the human genome, between you and I, we find a lot of mutation.
Yeah.
So if they're fixed and they're functional, that mutation would not be, it would not survive. It would be selected against. Right?
Right.
Unless he's claiming that only the conserved parts, the parts that haven't mutated yet, basically, he's claiming that
this is kind of the part where he contradicted himself yesterday, as he was talking about, these regions are functional, but they also accumulate mutations due to genetic entropy, which
that's the other
goes against itself. Because he's saying, they have to be exactly like viruses in this exact sequence. Oh, but they can also mutate. Yeah, that's that.
Yeah, and then he's claiming that if we find them in the same spot between the chimp and a human, the reason that the chimp and the human ERVs have mutated, that they're different, is because the chimp needs that to make chimp ears instead of human ears.
Right. Yeah, which again doesn't work because, as I've repeatedly said, and I'm sure others have said too, similar morphology doesn't necessitate similar genetics, gene sequences. You can have multiple mutations leading to the same phenotypic outcome. You can have multiple genetic pathways lead to the same phenotypic outcome. Like, these ERV sequences don't need to have these same mutations. Like, the genome is much more flexible than he's giving it credit.
Well, and once he's claiming that these nucleotides have to be the exact sequence that they are, and yet there can be genetic entropy and mutation going on.
Right.
And if there was genetic entropy and mutation, well, then the monkey would come out looking like something else, like a lizard. If every, it just doesn't make any. So he goes around and around, and he does it so quickly, and he's so skillful at diatribing that he manages to convince everybody that's listening to him that he knows what he's talking about. And he's contradicting himself constantly. It's like, is there mutation or is there not mutation? And then he's making the extraordinary claim that 48% of the genome that is basically transposons, that every little piece of that is developmentally, embryologically significant to create the animal that it creates. And from embryology, we know that it's very few genes that are actually involved in laying out the initial body plans. And there aren't that many, there aren't anywhere near as many pathways as you would have if what he was saying was true. And they would have figured it out by knockout experiments already anyway. So, I mean, it's just, you can't make that case that these ERVs have something in them that makes a chimp what it is and makes a human what it is. It just doesn't make any sense. Hi, Randolph.
Hey, Randolph.
It's supposed to be Shit Show Friday.
Hello.
Hey.
Oh, yeah?
We're picking on SFT.
Okay.
We're focusing the trash talk on SFT.
Actually, we're critiquing SFT, and he's going to interpret it as shit talking.
Yeah.
So he's not standing for truth. He's sitting for it.
Standing in poop. That's what he's doing. Okay.
Okay. And what I mean by that is information flow and cell optimization would be expected to be slightly different in, let's say, humans and chimpanzees. There may even...
Why?
Yeah. And then slightly more different in between humans and gorillas. And then slightly more different between humans and orangutans.
He's claiming that like, right down to biochemistry and physiology, the pathways that basically control our metabolism, that every one of them is different across different species, which is also not supported by any evidence.
Right.
Yeah, supports just the opposite, that we have a lot in common with bacteria still, as far as metabolism goes.
Right. Well, I mean, even with the great apes, or a lot of them live in similar habitats. Like, why would they need these? Like, why don't they all cluster together if, according to him, function dictates the underlying functional elements?
Right.
Like, I mean,
So he dances around between embryology and now he just mentioned, basic metabolism. And he's jumping around to many different things in order to not look as wrong as he actually is.
Even be secondary functions involved in these ERV sequences that are reflective of the so-called shared mutational discrepancies that may indeed just be created units. Okay,
Is he just babbling now?
But it's weird trying to figure out what he's saying exactly, because he's saying, oh, okay, they're different species, so obviously we expect them to be different all the way down. Like,
yeah, in order to create a chimpanzee, you have to have
like I said, the only way I can make sense of it is that he's claiming chimps and humans are different on the outside, therefore they must be slightly different on the inside.
Yep.
Which
that's
again doesn't follow.
And yet he's got his genetic entropy, which would mean that mutation has to happen anyway. So if all of these things led to what a chimpanzee looked like, the chimpanzee wouldn't look like the chimpanzee after a generation or two, according to genetic entropy.
Right. You got created heterozygosity, you got genetic entropy, you got these created differences in the DNA. Like, there are so many contrived mechanisms to explain so many different phenomena that inherently contradict each other. Like it's just, this is the reason why scientists accept evolution, not because it's a religion or a doctrine or anything like that. It's because it is the best current explanation that most consistently explains all the available evidence.
Yep. Okay, where am I at?
Grand conspiracy going on here.
Well, I think I'll jump ahead to 106 and see what I
Sure.
get.
Right, taxonomically restricted, endogenous retrovirus, the genomic organization and signatures of ERVs, what they look for, the LTRs, the GAG, POL, and ENV properties of it. And here's some important questions, okay? Why are there ERV sequences shared between the genomes of organisms? Well, we've discussed. It's either the common ancestry model would suggest that they're vestiges, and they can be utilized.
He did say vestigi, right? Instead of vestige.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just said vestiges.
He invented a new word. I think it's kind of cool. So
I'm going to the dictionary.
There's no vestigi, but yeah, he's taking creative license
as almost a historical record of evolution, common descent.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Or
how it
are they
works.
reflective of common design and design diversity, which has its own set of expectations and predictions? But if they really are created units of DNA function, even if we find functions, even if we find a lot of functions for these elements, okay, these created units of DNA function, as I would propose, there's still the greater question, and this is a good question. If viral-like sequences in the genomes of organisms are functional, why do they bear similarity to viral genetic material? We still have to explain why these ERV sequences, even if functional.
Okay, and he goes on to explain.
You know what he was trying to say with vestiges?
What?
Vestiges.
Oh, okay.
That's the word. He just, for some reason, has never said it before, trying to disprove evolution.
Okay. I thought he was using creative license. Turns out he's just illiterate.
But I wouldn't say illiterate.
Okay.
Is there an echo?
Oh, no. Not an echo.
You're going to have to take a dive, Steve.
I hate you guys.
I don't know why it does that. Like, it must be something on my end, because I seem to be the one that it centers around for some odd reason.
Are you radioactive somehow?
That's a good question. Well, I got some potassium in me from eating bananas, so maybe I'm a wee bit radioactive.
Are you related to bananas?
I believe so.
Potassium related?
Did you know that Matt Powell has a giant banana in his backyard named Dr. Peel?
Oh, yeah.
He named it?
Yep.
That's what I heard. That's named Dr. Peel.
What does he think he's doing? Competing with Ray Comfort?
I don't know. That's just what I've heard.
Well, he's
Ray
done,
Comfort's the banana man.
yeah, but he's done videos with Ray Comfort, I think, on the banana. I think they
That doesn't mean he's going to try to steal not going to steal Ray Comfort's ideas, though.
Yeah, they should copyright strike him for that. So anyway, so then Donny goes on to switching sides, how endogenous retrovirus protect us from viral infections, and this is the Botterayan, I think it's Botterayan or something, Botterayan or something, paper that he keeps showing, and he goes on to so these ERVs, which were put in our genome to give us diversity on the one hand, and to create chimps or humans on the same hand, probably. At the same time, they had to be exactly like viruses so that they could protect us from viruses, which they don't do a very good job of.
Right.
So all of them had to look exactly like
it's X, but it's also not X. Or it's X, but it's also Y, but it's also Z, but it's also Theta.
Yeah. And Botterayan and the other guys that are talking about, there is basically that ENV and sometimes the GAG, more rarely the GAG, the ENV protein will trigger an immune response under some conditions. And also there's competition with viruses, and they've known this for 25, 30 years, that viruses can compete with one another. So this is kind of what we would expect from our hypothesis. Exactly. Right. But he's claiming that he's making the claim that they all have to have this. Now, if they all have this, and if they all were transcribed and translated into ENVs, our cell would be stuffed full of this protein, and it would only protect us from a few viruses. So what is he talking about? Why do they all have?
This is the good question to ask, because he seems to be failing at Occam's razor here. Like a good question to ask anyone who isn't familiar with this whole YouTube debate would be, okay, listen to what Donny is saying. Does that make any sense? Like, is it consistent? Like, would you, if they didn't think anything specifically beforehand, would they accept what Donny is saying versus the evolutionary explanation? Because he's essentially come up with ad hoc excuses here to try and rescue his position.
Right. So if you wanted to put one gene into our genome, or if you wanted to protect us against viruses by using this mechanism, you would only need one gene.
Or at most a handful.
Yeah, at most a couple of genes, and they would get transcribed and translated at a significant enough volume that they would protect us from the virus, but they don't anyway. So because we still get viruses, there's some protection. Now, the reason that these people like Ray or Ryan or whatever wrote these papers is what they're interested in is they think that they can turn on certain ERVs in cancer cells by identifying the cancer cell, and that they can do this pharmaceutically, that they can cause the immune system to kill those cells. That's what they're speculating about. And these guys have taken all of this, and of course these flashy titles that they like to put on their papers, they've taken this as proof that ERVs protect us from viruses. And if you look through the literature, they say, well, we gotta look into this, and we don't know the mechanism, and we're not sure, and blah blah blah. They don't know yet that there's any real significant effect from these ERVs.
Well, the point is, he's making the grandiose claims. Actual scientists involved aren't making these bold assertions.
Right. Yep. I don't know.
Okay, I think Icarus has the key to understanding what Donny is doing.
Oh yeah, the Hovind test.
How you should deal with it. Yeah, I think he's spot on there. No wonder he's a professor.
Have a 5-year-old to spare.
The 5-year-old be what the fuck did that man just say? Yeah.
I think Professor Icarus is going to be made a professor emeritus pretty soon. I mean,
soon. Yes.
He's just really on the ball here.
What's Randolph got? What goes great with the
Lyme disease? Yeah.
Oh my.
That's funny.
Yep. Anyway, I don't know how much more there is that's worth getting into.
Did you highlight anything, or because I also mentioned the target site duplications with him, and his explanation was interesting to say the least.
Did he have any kind of explanation? Was that around? I'm not sure where that was. Yeah, my next bookmark is way over at Moonlighting Proteins. So I didn't do a good job of bookmarking this.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, we still got to review that other discussion anyway, so maybe we'll just have to do a part 2.
Yep.
ERV seems to be the thing nowadays anyway.
Yeah, so I've been looking for HERVWs in my massive database, and I want to pick one and do some comparative genomics on it. And I would like to find some of these TSDs too, and I got to figure out whether there's a database that locates those. Because when you asked them about TSDs or target site duplications, it seemed like he kind of stuttered all over the place, didn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit. Like he had just heard of it now for some reason.
He had no comeback at all for it, other than he kept mentioning, well, yeah, if there are these scars, then why would those scars be there? And then he never came up with his own hypothesis about why they would be there. So,
Well, I think the explanation he tried to come up with basically was that how would we distinguish these TSDs from kind of going back to the Vige hypothesis? How would we distinguish TSDs from a retrotransposon just reinserting itself versus a newly inserted ERV sequence?
yeah.
Which we as Dr. Dan kind of notes, we have ways of distinguishing between the two, because if you find, for example, a target site duplication next to a LTR that's unique to a specific family of ERVs, then you can be pretty confident that's an ERV, case closed.
Yep.
So it's
Yeah,
not as ambiguous as he thinks it is.
He wasn't prepared for that. Anyway,
If only we had the song on hand.
I have an objection, Speed.
Yep.
You know, I sent you a link to a YouTube video from Steve Bonham.
Oh, yes.
Why don't I see analogies in scientific papers? And it's a very short video, and it just makes a couple of really good points.
Okay.
Well, let me get that up. Steve Ballman, yeah, we'll pull that up. It's only, 7 minutes long?
I think it's less than that. Let me open it up and see.
Okay, hang on a second.
I wonder if Dessel will join us today.
I don't know. I wanted Grr to join us and tell us about his Kenny encounter.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's about 5 minutes long.
Yeah. Oh, do you have a link to it?
On my phone, but not. I can obviously go into my history.
No, I'll find it. Oh, history. Okay. Steve Ballman. Oh God, I've been watching these videos from this lady who's called where the hell is it here? The Real 3 Southern Cats and Mama, where she imitates her cats doing things, and I have about 50 videos that I watch. Don't start watching those. Don't look up 3 Southern Cats and Mama.
Our viewer count's going to go way down to like 2.
Yeah, don't do that.
Even Andrew's going to abandon us.
Yeah. Okay, Geo-Rant 165. Here we go.
Touche, Dessel. Touche.
What's he got to say?
So, I might hop in, but I would derail your convo.
Yeah.
Anything I say sometimes.
He probably wants to bitch about Ellen Watts or Buddhism or something.
Oh, did you check out that other video on Buddhist epistemology I sent you?
No, I haven't checked that one out yet either.
You might find it useful. I didn't watch it. I just thought, maybe since it deals with Buddhism, maybe you might find some interest in it.
I feel like the title is weird. There's an epistemology for Buddhism.
Yeah,
because we have to deal with the subject of knowledge, I think.
Well, it was a particular branch of Buddhism, right?
Oh.
And I don't read that shit. There's a lot of shit in Buddhism. You don't.
I didn't think specific religions had specific epistemologies.
Oh, Buddhism has like 1,000 different schools and doctrines and paths and stuff.
Right.
And just one of them. So, yeah.
And I think probably like presuppositionalists may insist upon a very uniform epistemology in order to come to the conclusions they do. So,
yep. Okay. LF3F protein is a moonlighting protein. There's probably a lot of moonlighting proteins. That's how evolution happens. Okay, sure. So should we see what Steve Bowman has to say?
Sure.
Let's run it.
I want to put this. I don't want to play the whole thing because I want people to go out and Visit his site.
Look
He has a lot of good stuff on geology,
Oh,
and and a lot of good
wait,
stuff.
is this CB Shorey?
What's
What's
that?
his channel? What's the channel name?
Steve Bowman.
Oh, I guess it's a different one then.
Yeah, he's really good, and he's got a lot of short videos. He's got a lot of stuff against how plate tectonics pretty much bashes creationism in the head and a bunch of other stuff. So he's got a lot
Nice.
of
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, he gets fairly detailed into geology. So
Yeah, it is like 80 degrees Fahrenheit out. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about analogies and how they're used in science. I'm not going to go into the breadth of what an analogy is, but basically, it's not a direct equivalence. A lot of people think it is, and they try to sit there and tell people they're giving a false analogy, but they're really not because they're flawed by nature. They're also supposed to be limited in scope.
Okay, did you hear what he said? Flawed by nature analogies, basically.
Supposed to address a specific part of something. They're not supposed to be broad, sweeping generalizations and be extrapolated even further. They aren't evidence of anything, like some people use them as or anything like that. But that's not what I want to talk about. I've talked about all that stuff before. Today I'm going to talk about their use in science because somebody actually asked this to me, and I need to say something. The answer is you're really never going to see them in a paper. Why not? Well, because they're flawed by nature. For one, analogy may work sometimes in a certain situation in a paper, and it may not work other times. But that's not the real reason why you don't see it. The real reason why you don't see analogies in papers is because papers are not teaching tools. Analogies are supposed to be teaching tools. Get someone to understand something and limited in scope and give them that eureka moment. Papers assume that the reader already has a background in what's being said. And that's part of the reason why so many laymen trying to figure stuff out don't read papers. I don't think it's honestly something that like they're anti-papers necessarily. Because why? Textbooks are teaching tools. And this is structural geology, and this is a very...
Oh, here we go.
But you will see them in textbooks. Because why? Textbooks are teaching tools. And this is structural geology, and this is a very popular pizza analogy and pepperoni sliding upon it to demonstrate for you, the kinematic model of translocation and rotation of pepperoni. And that's a bunch of word salad if you don't know what it means, but this analogy explains it to you. Basically, it's supposed to represent, the pepperoni is supposed to represent some sort of rock record upon some other rock, and those pepperonis can move and how far they move and all of that kind of stuff. That's basically the deformation of that. And plus, pizzas can be folded and stuff like that, stuff like this. See, you can bend bend solid objects. It happens. So anyway, but that's basic and set you up for understanding things like strain versus stress and ellipsoids. And if you wanted to, but so that kind of stuff's in the beginning. And then you get further along and you get into these, I'm just going to use the strain versus stress, confined.
We'll probably stop it here before we get copyright.
He won't get he won't do a copyright, but I just want to make one other point.
About 131 here. Okay, some nice diagrams, and then you turn the page, some pictorial stuff. Now this is not an analogy. This is a demonstration. This is an equivalence. It's trying to show you what actually happens. So it's not an analogy. And then by the next couple pages, you're already getting into equations. See, geology is not just looking at rocks and going, yeah.
There you go. That's the part. So, yeah, they start with an analogy as a teaching tool to kind of give you an idea of how it works. But an analogy is, as he puts, inherently flawed. An analogy is never going to tell you. And what I heard in SFT's thing and what I saw in that article, what I didn't read in that article that we were reading earlier, is he had like 3 or 4 analogies in there.
Yeah.
The Russian speaking.
Oh, yeah. He loves his analogies.
Yeah, and it's just bullshit. It's just basically bullshit. So
because he's trying to make an argument without actually having a deeper argument to go with it.
Right. So I wanted to point all
In
that
case of
out.
emergency.
Well,
Oh, I love that.
Scott wanted to point that out, actually. That's
Yeah.
not me.
How do you spell his name so I can look it up later?
Bauman. I'd have to double check that.
If you look
Bauman.
at my description, Andrew, I linked this video in my description.
Oh, okay.
Which is great.
Yeah.
It's like almost like we're citing somebody else's work.
Anyway, he's really got a lot of great stuff on geology. He primarily in Wisconsin and Illinois and the northern United States and Canada. He does a lot of really deep dives, and he does a thing on plate tectonics, a 2 or 3 part series that is
Nice.
very, very good for plate tectonics.
Ooh, I'll have to check that out because I like learning about plate tectonics.
Yeah, he has a lot of rankings.
Have you looked at Nick Zentner's YouTube channel as
Also
well,
very good. Yep.
Andrew?
Who?
Nick
Zentner.
Zentner. He's got
I
entire
don't believe so.
courses on lower level, like first year, second year geology, and he does deal with plate tectonics.
Ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
he really gives you a really good idea of what happened out in Washington and Oregon, and all of these different pieces of ocean crust slamming in to the I can't think of the term,
Exotic terrain.
into North America that ended up creating Washington, because Washington wasn't there before.
Right.
It ended at Idaho, somewhere around there. And it just, started to, there's this accrual of all of these volcanic accretions, that slammed into each other. And then underneath it, and then the crust started to subduct, and then you ended up with this huge volcanic record. And what you end up with is this really good picture. And then that affects you where you are, Randolph, because a lot of what he does talks about your neck of the woods.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Which used to be in Mexico, or where Mexico is now, not so long ago. But anyway, he gives you a really good picture of why the flood model is so goddamn ineffective at explaining all of these geological forms that we find. And the geologists have a really good story for it. So,
and instead of calling him Dr. Crackers, you could call him Mr. Candy Bar, Nick Zentner, because he uses 2 candy bars to demonstrate how solid objects like granite and stuff like that can be folded. And what he does is he gets 2 of them. One of them he puts in his pocket, and he walks to the classroom, and then he shows how when you put pressure to the one that didn't go in his pocket, it breaks because it's brittle or whatever. But then the one that's been in his pocket, he pulls out, and it obviously it's very malleable because of heat and of course and pressure. I guess that's just like an illustration, like a demonstration, but it's not.
Well, you could call it anti-crackers.
Yes, the anti-cracker.
Anti-cracker.
The anti-cracker theorem.
Yep. Explains it a little better. Anyway, if you find a link to Nick Zentner, we could put that in the description too, so that Andrew could follow that for geology.
I will do that.
Nick Zentner?
Nick Zentner, yeah, he teaches geology at the University of Washington, I think. Is that
Okay.
it?
I think I already found him.
What's that?
He's got a playlist, I think, of his courses that he's taught.
Yeah.
You want a link to his channel?
Yeah, to put in the description. Did you find him?
Okay. I think so.
Here,
Here, let me put, here, is this the right one? I put it in the private chat.
Randolph, are you leaving, or what did you say?
I'm not leaving.
He was saying goodbye to midnight earlier.
Oh, I see.
Oh, yeah, that's... they don't put stamps always on this. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That is the correct link, Andrew.
Okay. Yeah, I found it.
I will put that in the description because that's a good thing.
Yeah.
No more.
I will say it's interesting how like a century ago, or yeah, like literally a century ago, we didn't know half as well. We pretty much plate tectonics as a theory wasn't really a thing. It's kind of like the Big Bang theory in that sense, in that they're both relatively recent in terms of the scientific history.
And yet they've explained so much.
Right,
So well.
exactly.
The creationists have even adopted it, except they think it happened at 45 miles an hour instead of
Right.
Yeah.
Never read the paper, just look at the pictures. Hey,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to.
Okay, so I'm done for the day.
Okay. No one else coming in, I guess.
I'm done talking. So Randolph, what's happening? Anything? Randolph, have you been following Kenny? That new guy we found, Empty Tomb?
I'm not, but I just, your stream was the second time I met him just last night. The first time was on Bread of Life's stream. She's really nice too. And
Yeah.
he seems like a really nice person to converse with. Hello, Midnight Sparkle.
Yes, I'm
And-
a nice person to converse with. Well, how can you tell?
Yeah,
Nice.
no, he's quite pleasant. He's very polite and cordial, and he's. I'm looking forward to him presenting an argument on the fortnightly stream coming up in
Oh, nice.
about a week.
What are you talking about, by the way? I muted
Kenny.
the stream.
Kenny, who was on last night.
Empty
Kenny,
Tomb is his handle.
There's something I don't know how to describe that guy, but I think I described him to
Immovable.
Speed as a living projector, because it just seems like that's all he was doing was projecting onto others. Like, what the fuck?
Project
So
onto
odd.
others as they project onto you. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my god, I love water.
That's the bronze rule.
So
Water. As Ken
so
Owen,
are
how
you
can
gonna-
Owen say water?
water. Are you going to have him on your fortnightly, whatever the hell that means?
If he shows up in the audience, yeah. Like obviously he won't be on the panel because he's not an atheist. It's a panel of atheists and one theist. But I think he's interested in getting into
Wait,
bringing an argument forward on Discord for us, which will be great. I look forward to it.
well, can I just say this about Grr's stream yesterday? I really love how Kenny's wife came into the picture, like literally, and said, "Leo, why are you mad? Stop being mad. You're doing a negative." Like, it was just the funniest
Really?
shit.
Oh,
Yes,
I got it.
go watch Grr's stream. It
I'm
was
sorry. I have to correct earlier. I meant it was on Germania's stream that I met him, Kenny. the
Yeah,
second.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, right.
and
I don't know how I
oh my
mixed that up. I'm
god,
sorry.
like I'll tell you something off air. I don't want to say I don't want to say on air because it's kind of messed up. So I'll just wait till we go off air.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Just like I don't want to give my theory of early Christianity and what we should have done about it.
No.
No.
Not on there.
No.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it's best I haven't heard this.
Yes.
Does it involve raccoons? That's the only
Yes.
question I have.
Oh, it could, but no, not specifically.
Not specific. No. So midnight.
Yes.
You said you had something to contribute. Was it on epigenetics?
I mean, I always have something to contribute. My darling personality, my sparkling personality. That's
Oh.
contribution.
Well, that's enough. That's enough out of you then.
Okay, fine. Remove me then.
Yeah. So
Get a little bit of a
Did you
martyr
get-
complex today at midnight.
What?
yeah, he wants to be a martyr. Did you have anything specific that you wanted to mention about epigenetics or
No, I just find the subject of epigenetics really interesting, and and how we have some control over it. Notice I said some, not all control, because obviously epigenetic happens while the fetus is developing. I don't know who this is.
Hey, Dessel.
Oh, Deso. Because
Oh,
because because obviously epigenetics happens in the womb while the embryo is developing, and that's what decides which cell will be a neuron, which cell will be of like a muscle. You know what I mean? A muscle cell. So yeah.
Yeah, and there are some hypotheses about epigenetics getting its start uh, hundreds of millions of years ago in order to fight off viruses and retroviruses, which is kind
I
of
mean,
interesting.
I
I ran right in here because I heard you guys saying you guys are like telling stuff that you shouldn't say.
Like
Hi,
what?
John.
Oh, yeah, you're the chief of things that we shouldn't hear.
Yeah, because like, what were you saying and Scott was like shaking his head. No, don't say that, Speed.
We'll tell you off air.
That's why I came in too, because I wanted to hear Speed's theory on the origins of Christianity and what we should have done about it.
This channel
Speed,
does not,
why did
okay,
you say it? Why did you bring it up?
this channel does not endorse anything that Speed of Sound says.
Not even Speed of Sound himself, apparently.
Well, like I told Speed something here like a week or two ago, and then he was like the same thing like that Scott was. He was like, no, don't ever let anybody ever hear that.
Yeah, never. And we never shall. We never shall.
Never.
So, Drace, what are you wrong about today?
I mean, I was talking about epigenetics, but okay. How you doing, Drace?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm sexy.
Good to hear. I really don't have too much for you. I've just been I've been studying a bunch of stuff with like Christian origins and the New Testament, historical Jesus, all that stuff. I don't know. I was supposed to have a debate, but the person had to delay, and I haven't heard back from them about choosing a different time. So I don't know if it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, I think that'll actually free me up to do a video, so I could like present a more full case there instead of being limited to 15 minutes in a debate.
Who is that you're debating, supposedly?
Me and Jordan Karam, Reason and Doubt, agreed to debate on Amy's channel about whether or not there's good evidence for historical Jesus, but he might have to pull out, so I don't know. I just haven't heard from him. So
what side are you on that?
I'm a Jesus agnostic, so I don't think that the evidence is good enough to point either way.
Right. Yeah,
I'm always confused by when they want to make that argument about the historical Jesus. It's like, I think it's Nakasuchi that first, put this idea in my head. It's like, no, motherfucker, if you're a Christian and you're talking about Jesus, you're talking about the supernatural Jesus. You're talking about the Jesus that can do all the godly shit. You're not talking about so there was a guy named Jesus. Oh, well, that's not the Jesus described in the Bible. So I never understand the argument about historical Jesus. Where does that get them?
Yeah, it's like, who cares whether there's one or not? So
I actually I agree with that, like in the sense that I really don't think it's I don't think it really changes anything if it turns out that Jesus was really just a character that was created rather than one that lived on Earth, because I think the real essence of Christianity has to do with its morality. That's my personal understanding of it. And so, like, whether or not there was a historical figure that founded this movement, the real evaluation of Christianity has to come down to its moral program. And so I don't think it really makes a difference. But I do think it's an interesting historical question. And, trying to fill in the details about how Christianity started.
yeah, you had a book, Scott, that you just brought up. What was the name of it?
Yeah, I mentioned it to Drace in the side chat, but it's called When Christians Were Jews, the First Generation, by Paula Fredrickson. And she's a very noted scholar. And so, in fact, Bart Ehrman, I think, puts his stamp of approval on it, as well as the only other one I recognize is Amy Jo Levine. Do you know the name Martin Goodman, Grace?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, some of these I think I recognize, but they're kind of common names. But anyway, yeah, I'm exploring that sweet spot, the first generation before Paul really caught on in his theology, and just try to see if we can excavate from the text what it was like during the first century, and
which I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
That was the bed. Well, the first 300 years were the bed that this craziness developed in, basically, and took hold of all of human culture for 2,000 years. It's pretty important history. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Plaguing us still, and I have a solution.
I agree.
I have a solution.
Yeah. So the historical Jesus thing, I think that there's just like you have your, and this is to John, what John was saying before, you have like your Christian apologists, like your real zealous fundamentalists, evangelicals, and they want to really argue for that supernatural Jesus exactly as you see him in the Gospels. But then you have these more like, for lack of a better phrase, watered down Christians that don't really see things in this full on like miraculous, all this crazy stuff. And they'll like even interpret Jesus's resurrection as having like not actually occurred on earth, but it was like a spiritual event or something like that. And so, but they still want an actual historical Jesus, a man at the beginning of this movement, even if he's not running around like raising people from the dead and casting out demons and shit like that.
So you call that watered down Christianity?
Yeah, watered down, I guess, in intensity. That's just like, they're not as intense about following a literalistic understanding of the scripture.
Yeah, my impression of the first century, that generation right after Jesus was crucified, is that they essentially were Torah following Jews, except that they did see Jesus as a Messiah, a king who, even though he was dead, would come back and would be part of the restoration of Israel by God, as they see, was predicted in the various texts of the Old Testament. And it was just that simple. And then the Paul theology was just a bunch of add-ons. So I don't see it as watered down or like diluted. I see that as the core upon which so many features were added that sooner or later the core went away, and then there was so much theology around it that the apparatus still stood.
Went off the rails.
Yeah, well, just went in a different direction. It was more inclusive.
John, you wanted to say something earlier, John?
What? Yeah, I don't even remember. It was,
I'm sorry.
Well, no, that's okay. It was probably one of my normal silly comments that.
So I wanted to throw something in there. What I'm about to say is definitely not mainstream. It's just like my own personal kind of suspicion. But usually when people talk about Christian origins, they take the Torah observant Christians to come first. And that might be. But I think it's also totally plausible that the Pauline understanding with respect to the law might have come about at the same time. And I'll give a couple of kind of, they're not very strong reasons, but I think that they lend some credence to what I'm going to say. The first thing is that, like, if we're going to assume, for example, that Jesus was not historical, and we're looking to see like how this movement came about, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, particularly the Habakkuk Pesher, there's this story where the writer is basically complaining about this guy that he calls the man of the lie. And they're really pissed off at him and others because they're taking, in the words of Robert Eisenman, they're taking an antinomian approach to the law. They're taking an unorthodox approach to the law. And so the community doesn't like that. And so they describe them as liars and scoffers and so on. When you take a look at how they describe the man of the lie, he is, as a fisherman, casting his nets to catch people. And when you look in the Gospels, you see Jesus used with exactly that imagery, where like he's going to take his the fishermen that he meets as his apostles and now make them fishers of men. And so the fact that you see that, like, they're complaining early about somebody preaching an unorthodox approach to the law, using imagery that we see used on Jesus in the Gospels, that could place the Pauline understanding much earlier than just Paul. And then one last thing. What was I going to say? Screw it. Forget the last thing. Maybe it'll come back to me, but we can maybe roll with that so far.
Did you see that question from Stupid Whore Energy?
Let's see.
I'm looking into it now.
Okay.
Yep.
We're not ignoring you, Stupid Whore Energy.
Nope, not at all.
Oh, okay. I remember. I was going to agree, actually, with what Scott was saying about, like, he had the basic idea of a core that eventually went away. And there's probably a fair deal of that. Like, when I used that phrase watered down, it was just for lack of a better term at the time. But I do think that, like, when you take a look at certain modern, more liberal Christians, like when Scott's talking about how they were more inclusive in the beginning and stuff, I think that they're actually getting more at what, like, the original message of Christianity was supposed to be. So even though I use that language like watered down, I don't mean to make that sound as if they're like inauthentic Christians, because in an important way, I think even more authentic as Christians.
Yeah, I pretty much took it that way, but I just used my wording instead of yours.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I think overall there's a form of quote unquote watered down Christianity that is not a bad way for people to live. If you just let go of all the dogma and all the supernatural craziness, there's a thread there that kind of coincides with spirituality, which is a human function, something that our minds are basically built on.
I think you're talking more about like what you believe in, like the Buddhist philosophies and stuff.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying.
Basically myself though, like I've said for years, I am thankful that the majority of Christians, take their Bible a la carte, and they, take their beliefs a la carte. Like they, the ones that they, can are palatable to them. Because if all the Christians in the world were running around following the Bible to the letter, the world would be a fucking hellscape 24/7, 365, gay people being slaughtered, unruly children being taken to the square and stoned to death and shit like that. So I myself am kind of glad that most Christians don't follow the Bible, don't follow their religion, really.
I don't think we would have got out of the Middle Ages by this time, if that was the case. I think the Enlightenment is all due to this, what's the word I'm looking for? Metaphorical interpretation.
Yeah.
Right. The reconciliation of naturalism with the Bible. That's where I see it. The real change happening in history. When people make the argument that without Christianity you couldn't have science, I think that's just laughable. Absolutely laughable.
I agree.
Well, then they also they want to try and say that religion gave us science because of the fact that when the sciences were coming about, the scientific discovery was happening, most everybody believed in God, so of course it was the people that believed in God that gave us scientific discovery, because everybody believed in God.
I was just reviewing this specific topic today and yesterday on TikTok when I was reviewing a debate I was in 2019, March 15th, with Josh Brister on whether Christianity is more logical than atheism. And he was making that claim that Christians invented created science and created educational institutions and built hospitals and things like that. And in my response on TikTok to my audience, I was pointing out that what John is saying here, that in those times, people, it was the norm, the standard in those societies for people to conform to the religions. And the thing is, if people didn't partake in the religion, the state religion and whatnot, and the one with all of society is following, then they risk being ostracized. And being ostracized in those times is much, much worse. There's no social programs to fall back on. Your life is pretty well ruined if people won't sell food to you, if people won't hire you, things like that. And, you know, I explained a little further, you know, big employers like the church hiring people to paint the Sistine Chapel or other buildings, you know, of course they're going to hire Christians. So any artist comes along and wants to work, they'll just say they're a Christian. I'm sure that's happening.
What I find almost comical is that the greatest figures in history genuinely have not been very either orthodox or what you might call strong believers. So you get people like Newton, who wasn't a Trinitarian, who honestly thought that Jesus was the devil, right? So if anything, he was more like a Marcion, right? And he would be outright confirmed as a heretic and not a Christian today.
Except maybe not by the Romans. Except maybe not by the Romans.
Well, again, this is interesting. I mean, Romans famous for accidentally slaughtering. Who was it? Who said Eureka? Who was the mathematician that said Eureka in the bath when he worked out about displacement?
Bernoulli?
Einstein gets credited for that a lot.
Or was that a Greek philosopher?
No, this is a long time ago. Yeah. Archimedes.
Archimedes.
So Romans famous for saying, "What's maths ever done?" and they killed Archimedes. There was a thing sent out for him to be captured because they recognized that he was of great value. And a Roman soldier found somebody on a beach drawing circles in the sand and doing arithmetic or doing geometry. And the guy was so engrossed in the geometry he was doing, he didn't answer the Roman soldier. So the Roman soldier just chopped him down. And that's the fable. I don't know how true it is, of course.
Yeah, it's not like he invented the word eureka, because that's just a Greek word or Greek phrasing for "I have found it."
Yeah, exactly. But he's famous for saying it when he was in the bath.
Popularized it.
Right. Famous for saying it when he was in the bath. That was his eureka moment, as they now call it, because of that. But anyway, and there are many others as well. The mathematician Hypatia, who worked in the Library of Alexandria. Well, again, famously a mathematician working on infinite series, which is the beginning and the path to calculus, was ritually tortured, killed, quartered, and burnt by Christians.
Because he didn't conform.
Now, wasn't she associated with the Library of Alexandria?
That's right. That was the burning in the late 4th century.
Greatest loss ever.
It's so good that we have human rights these days. If only every country could get on board with it, and then religion will fall more and more by the wayside as things go on. But it's a slow death throes that religion.
It'd be nice when our country gets on board with human rights.
And another famous one, just to mention it, is Michelangelo, of course, who was a heretic beyond heresy. So, I mean, and they kept employing him, of course, because he was so good. Go ahead, sorry.
These chapter names are kind of cool on this book that Stupid or Energy brought us. What is it? I forget the name of the book. But anyway, scientists and their hecklers. Kind of cool. But he's a mathematician, and he goes through apparently in some detail and comes back against creationism stuff. So anyway, looks good. Looks good. Information and combinatorial search. I think it's pretty cool. Jason Rosenhaus's book on mathematical anti-evolutionism. So anyway, there you go. Linked in the description.
I actually made a bit of a faux pas the other day. I was in a hangout and somebody put up a message saying 40% of people in America believe in creationism. And somebody on the panel said, "Why do you think that is?" And I went, "Surely it's education." Unfortunately, Sal and Bread of Life were in the hangout at the time.
What was their reaction?
Well, Bread of Life went, "You are talking to two creationists which have 5 degrees between them." I went, "Well, I apologize. It's not true of everybody, but 40%? Come on now."
Just
Yeah, but Rebecca's degrees are not in science, are they?
I would imagine Sal's is in mathematics, isn't it?
Well, yeah, he's like applied physics, and what's the other one?
I do not know. I'll be honest.
I was kind of asking Speed. We talked about this yesterday, I think.
Yeah, applied physics and mathematics, I think, is the other one.
Yeah.
But anyway, what Rebecca said there kind of bodes badly for education in general.
You know.
Oops.
Yeah, it was a bit of a faux pas. I kind of went, "Oh shit, maybe I should have been a little more diplomatic." You know.
Yeah, like I just was, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
You want diplomacy? Go somewhere else. Go to another channel. Anyway, they are so wrong, and I can't believe how they construct their ideas. That stuff with Andrew and SFT is really illustrative of how they put together a whole bunch of little sparks of light, and they come up with this, like they know, like all of these little tiny one-off bits of evidence, like polystrate fossils, for instance, and they put it all together, and it's like, oh, you see, yeah. It's like, no, I don't see. You got to look into every little detail, dude. You can't just look at the highlights.
Who was it that said nothing in biology makes sense except through the light of evolution?
Oh God, I forgot his name.
Who was it that said that?
A long time ago. It was a while ago.
Is it Stephen Gould or somebody like that?
No,
maybe.
Not Dobzhansky, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Theodosius Dobzhansky. Right. Yeah, that's, man, I'm starting to get rusty on my biology over here with all this Christian origin stuff. I really got to get back over there.
How are you doing that, Drace? How do you split yourself? I basically gave it to Scott, the whole ball of wax.
Yeah, so what I try to do, because I have taken on the idea of learning multiple different fields. And so one of the things that's helped me out is making recordings or writing articles that I'll save. And it basically summarizes all the research at a particular time that I found was most important. And because I've concentrated it all there for myself, I can easily go back and recall a particular period of time when I was really up on something. But besides that, it's long-term memory and short-term memory. And the long-term usually isn't too bad. The short-term is pretty terrible by now.
Yeah, I'm having a hell of a time with memory occasionally too. But then overall, I managed to put down a bed of terminology and information. But I get really upset with myself when, the stuff from yesterday, I have to review it and don't remember. And then every now and then, before I've had my coffee, I will get a common word for something. And it's it drives me crazy until I figure it out.
I'm getting that as well.
That's the way memory works.
Yeah.
Particularly the thing is, I've got a theory about as you age, you put together so many cross connections between cortical columns that you are bound to have trouble recalling things because you have too much information in your brain.
I find sleep is a major factor.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is, like before you go to sleep, if you're having trouble recalling one particular thing, if you rehearse it and force yourself to recall it right before you go to sleep, it'll pop up. So it's pretty cool. So,
Okay.
who made me full screen? Oh, that's where Jews. But yeah, that so basically sleep is where you take all that short-term craziness and you integrate it with all those long-term cortical columns, of which you have about 30,000 of them. And for everything you remember, like every cortical column has in it thousands of different facts and memories, depending on how you cross over, depending on how you hit it, right?
Right. I like that meme there.
Yeah, Godzilla is real.
Oh dear. Oh, fucking hell. You're a one, Randolph.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good.
You like these, huh?
Yeah,
I do very much.
yeah. I have to keep
Here's
track
another one.
of memes.
This one's good. It's the only place that zombie Jesus can't reach you. You're underwater. Because he walks on water.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Anyway, guys, should we shoot her in the head?
Sure.
Desolate.
Sure.
We said
started-
everything you need to.
Yeah, I think so.
You have to advocate for a violent end, are you?
Yeah, I've done as much damage as I can possibly do today. I'm sure I could do
Speaking-
more, right, Scott? I could do more, like before the show.
Mm.
I could do
Speaking of
more.
ends, do you think we've nailed it then?
Yeah, I think we nailed it. Oh, let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna end. So goodbye, cruel world. We're out of here.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Goodbye.
Answers in atheism.
AIC.